Hollywood starlet Rita Hayworth was one of a kind. She was admired for her sex appeal and strong on-screen presence. She initially hoped to become a dancer, but she ended up in Hollywood and was given the chance of a lifetime to explore the world of cinema firsthand. It seemed she was always destined to be a star. Her family groomed her for fame from an early age, making sure she attended regular training sessions as a young girl. She scored her first big break when she was 16, being offered a film contract by Fox. She debuted in her first motion picture, Under the Pampas Moon, in 1935. She went on to star in numerous significant films like Dante's Inferno, Meet Nero Wolfe, Gilda, Human Cargo, and Tales of Manhattan. Gilda, however, was by far one of the most popular films of her career. It was the movie that helped her establish herself as a bona fide Hollywood star. Sadly, though, her personal life was full of tragedy and controversy, and it was especially difficult for her to work through these obstacles and come out on the other side unscathed. For one, she never had a normal childhood. She struggled to find a sense of normalcy into her adult life as well, and she hopped from one toxic relationship to the next. Eventually, she developed serious health issues that put a halt to her career and left her feeling isolated, lonely, and confused in her final years. Hayworth had so much to fight against in her life. In this video, we'll present you with just a small fraction of what her life was like and how she became one of the most treasured and envied Hollywood starlets of all time, despite the fact she was having to constantly swim upstream. Rita Hayworth was pushed into dancing from an early age. Rita was born Margarita Carmen Cancino on October 17, 1918 in New York. Her family was already in show business and were thrilled at the prospect of introducing their new child to the family business. Her father, Eduardo Cancino, was a professional dancer, and her mother, Volga, had been a performer with the Ziegfeld Follies. Her parents were serious about pushing their daughter to focus on dancing, and she wasn't given a choice. By the time she was 12, she'd already become a professional dancer with her parents' help. She wasn't thrilled about the idea of becoming a dancer, though. She didn't know how to speak up for herself and refused to do the lessons. There was a lot of pressure and expectations. She lacked the courage to speak up to her father, so she took the lessons. She spent the majority of her youth rehearsing and practicing her steps, and because of that, she missed out on the chance of a normal childhood. Reportedly, she also didn't receive the right kind of love and support from her parents, and they pushed her constantly to do better and never acknowledged her success. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. And keep watching to find out all about Rita's failed marriages and health struggles. She was the victim of child abuse. According to a report published by the Chicago Tribune, her father routinely abused her when she was young. Whenever she and her dad would go off on work-related trips, he'd victimize her in grotesque ways that we're not going to go into. But one thing is for certain, the trauma she experienced early on in life is more than likely what caused her to become quiet, reserved, and shy later on. Rita's mother knew about the abuse and tried to protect her daughter as much as possible. She'd even sleep next to her whenever she was at home to save her from her father's touch. It was difficult, however, to protect her when they were away. Her first husband was controlling. In 1937, Rita married an ex-car salesman named Eddie Judson. Even though he was substantially older than her and they didn't seem to be a perfect fit, she decided to throw caution to the wind and give it a go. She once said she married him for love, but he only married her as an investment. For the next several years, he became very controlling and treated her as if she didn't have a mind or soul of her own. He pushed her to work more and participate in events that would earn more publicity. That's all he ever cared about. He even forced her to undergo painful electrolysis treatments so she would look less Latin, as he put it. And if she dared question him, he would threaten her with bodily harm and even disfiguration. Not only that, he also tried to get her to have sex with other men just to secure more work. At one point, he tried to make her sleep with Columbia Pictures' influential executive Harry Cohn. Fortunately, Hayworth stood up for herself and refused to succumb to his wishes. This angered Cohn and led to him mistreating Rita later on when they had to work with each other. Her next marriages weren't any better. Rita's second marriage to actor and director Orson Welles wasn't much better. He found her attractive, but could care less about being emotionally available for her during their relationship. He repeatedly cheated on her with no remorse with other actresses and even slept with prostitutes behind her back on several occasions. After that marriage fell apart, she married Prince Ali Khan, who was famous for being a bit of a playboy. He dated Rita when he was still married to another woman, but they eventually got married anyway in a big, elaborate royal ceremony. Their marriage wasn't meant to last, and they called things off in 1951. After that, Rita married singer Dick Haymes, who was also neglectful and exploited her for her finances. Rita was involved in a bitter child custody battle. When Rita's turbulent marriage with Ali Khan started going down the drain, she knew she was about to embark on a tough journey. Things had gotten so bad, she was isolating herself to get away from the paparazzi and other dangerous people. Khan wasn't at all supportive of her when they were married, and spent a lot of time trying to date other women, while Rita could barely even manage to stay on her feet. At some point, she decided enough was enough, but when she expressed herself to Khan, he accused her of being drunk. Hayworth was furious and decided to take her daughters and make a break for it back to New York. Khan and Hayworth then duked it out in court with a long drawn-out custody battle. Rita even briefly lost custody of her children to the state, but fortunately she was able to win them back in the end. She struggled in Hollywood. Even though she was exceptionally talented and had a ton of potential, Rita wasn't always taken seriously by everyone she worked with in Hollywood. She was one of those stars people loved to hate. Everything from her ethnic heritage to her public image was intensely scrutinized. Once she rose to fame, she all but buried Hispanic roots, and those in her inner orbit were constantly trying to change her in other ways. She tried so hard to adapt to Hollywood life. She gave restrictive diets a shot, had expensive hair and cosmetic procedures done, and even changed her name to fit in. One thing remained consistent, though. Every time she hit the stage to dance, her personality radiated, and she was virtually unstoppable. That being said, it's still obvious that Hayworth's public image wasn't accurately represented, and she was highly sexualized in a vain attempt to appeal to a wider audience. She suffered from Alzheimer's disease. Rita started displaying alarming symptoms of cognitive decline in the 60s, but everyone thought it was a side effect of heavy drinking. She began to struggle with the most basic of tasks like remembering her lines. Eventually, they'd have to shoot each line one at a time because she couldn't commit any more than that to memory. It was heartbreaking. Hayworth felt alone and confused, and as time went on and her illness progressed, she developed erratic and bizarre behavior. Sadly, she wasn't diagnosed with Alzheimer's until 1980. By that point, she had already spent years suffering without knowing why. In her final days, the only person by her side was her daughter Yasmin Ago Khan Jeffries, who moved to New York to care for her. Her mother would often get agitated out of the blue or experience paranoia and mood swings without being able to explain to anyone what was happening. It was excruciating for Yasmin to watch her suffer, but she pressed on and stayed by her mother's side regardless. At 68, Rita slipped into a semi-coma in February 1987. She died 3 months later, May 14, 1987, in her home. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think Rita's best film was? 1946's noir classic Gilda or 1944's CoverGirl? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to FactsVerse for more. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.